Welcome. This is the second part of our live video. So what we're going to do here is go over the first Tiny College ERD segment. This will give you a great insight on how to do your project. So I will do as much explaining as I can without going overboard. This is all in the book as well, so you can read up on any part that you're not fully comfortable with in here. So basically what we have is a tiny college. It could be any college, and it's divided into several schools, such as the School of Technology, School of Business, School of Applied Sciences. Obviously, each college has to have a dean, so it's administered by one dean, and the dean itself is a professor. Now, the key is the dean can only be dean of one school, and each professor, who's obviously a professor, it could be a dean, but it's not required to be a dean. So right off the bat, we know we have a one-to-one relationship between the professor and the school. So if we go over to school, we can look over here. We have a one-to-one relationship. Now, this is not 0 to 1 because each school has to have a dean, and we can only have one dean itself. However, the other way around is a professor can be a dean, but he can only be a dean of one, but he does not have to be a dean. So it, in this particular case, is 0 to 1. So the cardinality here is 1, 1. Here 0, 1. And here we see the primary key and the foreign key. The primary key is school code. The primary key here is professor number. And then the foreign key here is the professor number over here. And that is related to the primary key and the professor in here. Then each school has several departments in here. So you can have as many departments as you want. And it could be School of Technology, School of Education, School of Business, so on and so forth. And so we're going to have a department code. And of course, we have a school code. So now we have, again, a department can be associated with only one of the schools. So we have, like, for instance, School of Education could have School of Educational Leadership, can have School of Advanced Education, can have a School of Primary Education. And when we're talking about school in this particular case, I'm talking about departments or majors in here. So for in our particular case, we're going to look at department as a major. Again, we have a primary key, and then we have a foreign key, which is the school code. So each school department has to be associated. So it's one and only one school. However, a school itself can have many departments. Now we have the second step over here. So each department offers many different things. For instance, the marketing department can offer introduction to marketing, principles of marketing. IT can offer several different courses such as database, web design, programming in here. So again, this is the department or the major, and the book kind of uses them synonymously, so hopefully that does not confuse you. So basically, we can create a department and it does not have any courses affiliating with it. Therefore, 0 to many, but it can have many. Now, if they would only have up to 5 classes, this would be 0 to 5. So the cardinality is not explicitly defined in this particular case in here. So business rules really should fall into play in this particular case over here. They're not shown over here, but bear that in mind. Now, again, a course cannot have by itself. It has to be associated with a department. Now, one thing is important to understand that a class section and a course over here, so we have a semester, we have a course, and a class. Well, here's a class section. It cannot exist without a course, but a course can exist without a class being affiliated with it. So here we have a class, one-to-one relationship with course. Course can have many different sections. For instance, a web design class can have 4 different sections running at the same time. Now notice it is affiliated with a semester. So we are going to do everything by semester, as Barry University does. They have spring A, they have spring B, they're considered specific semesters. So what we have in here, we have a course can only be affiliated with one and only semester, but you can create a new semester without any assigned courses. However, that's not going to keep the school in business very long if they don't have any courses to teach. And then, of course, each section can only be taught by one professor. So we have that over here. So we have a professor. Each professor can only be the part of one department. He must be one to one and only one department. However, a department, of course, can employ many professors. So it's one to many. Now, the business rules, again, might specify that you can create a department and not have any professors. But that kind of does not make any sense to have that a department with no professors. And again, we have a department has to have a chair. So you're going to have only one and only one professor as a chair. However, a professor can be a professor and not a chair of a department. Therefore, it's zero. However, if he's a chair, he can only be the chair of one department. Now we have again classes and professors. So a professor is not required to teach a class in this particular model. Maybe he's doing research, maybe he's on sabbatical, maybe he's doing assistance with something else. However, if he's only allowed to teach up to 4 classes, you would have the cardinality under here in parentheses 0, 4. However, each class must have a professor assigned to it and can only have one and only one professor in here. So you can see how this is written in here, the cardinality for the enrolled students. So we have a student can enroll in up to 6 classes. However, he's not required to enroll in any classes. Or possibly you have a student and he hasn't been fully accepted yet, so now you have a student, but he doesn't have any classes to be enrolled in. However, in order to enroll, you have to have a student in here. So you can see the student number is both a primary key and a foreign key. And then the primary key itself is the student number and the class code. Class code is also a foreign key into the class itself. So we have one strong relationship and we have one weak relationship in here. So again, we can have a class that can have 0 students, maybe nobody signs up in it, but the maximum would be 35. Okay, now we have the 7th segment in here, and we have department and student. Now, in this particular case, think of department really as major. A student may have only one major, but at this particular case, he's not declare his major. Therefore, it's 0 to 1. The business rules determine that. It could be 1 to 1. Maybe a student, before he's allowed to enroll, has to declare his major. And again, you can have a major that does not have any students in here, but of course it's going to have many students. We're obviously not going to keep a department or major going very long if nobody students are in there. So notice that we have a primary key here, and then we have a foreign key of the department code going to the primary key of the department. Okay, the 8th segment over here is your advisors. So most advisors are professors, but it doesn't necessarily. You could have a advisor table. Barry University has people that are both advisors alone, but they also teach a class in here. So that's, again, the business rules over here. So you could have that a separate table for advisors if you wanted to. Now notice we have 0 to many. That means the professor does not necessarily have to have a student to advise, but he can have many. Now the cardinality is not shown in here. And notice the dotted line in here, which shows for a weak relationship because you have professor number is not part of the primary key of the student file over here. If it was, it would be listed up here, and it would be a strong relationship. So we have the professor number relating to the primary key of the professor in the professor table. and each student must have at most one professor. So it's one-to-one relationship over here. So now we have a building and classrooms. Now again, a room cannot exist without a building. So therefore we have a dependent entity in here. So and a class needs obviously a classroom in here. So we have a building. Now the building is built, doesn't necessarily have to have any rooms technically. So, but as soon as we have rooms, we have room codes. Now I'm not a big fan of building a building and it has no rooms, but they consider possibly rooms. A building is a building, it may have many rooms, none of them assigned for classroom codes. Again, the world famous phrase business rules. So now we have a room code is a primary key and it goes to foreign key building code is affiliated with that. So each room can only be in one and only one building. If you know any other ways of doing it, please let me know. And then we have a room can have many classes, but a class must have a one and only one room. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to have any classes assigned to it. And so here we have the components of the ERM. I highly recommend, highly recommend that you create this table for your project. This will make it much happy, much easier. And I also recommend that you put in a separate column for cardinality. And then this is the final slide. This is a entire depiction of the entire college, and it's kind of a little bit challenging to see it all together, but you can see all the different relationships. Now remember, all the ones that are in bold here, notice each one here has a primary key. Now normally the ones that are in bold are required. Don't confuse them with keys. If it's a key, it's going to have a PK or an FK. Now notice it has FK1 because down here you have FK1. You have separate foreign keys because it's associated with more than one other entity in here. So it's as simple as we can get that. I hope that you are fully understanding this. You have a slide that should say here, database challenges in here. And these are the things that you need to do. And then again, you want to take care of these things in here. You must conform your database to the design standards in here. Always do that. And here are the various of the recursive relationship over here. So you can see, again, an employee is married in here. So you have a simple implementation where it's one and one's recursive. Here you have it in two separate tables in here. And then we can have a third one in here. So marriage number, marriage partner in here. This is a way of making something simple into something complicated. Welcome to the world of IT. So hopefully this helps you. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I'd be more than happy to answer them. So have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.